In this video lecture, we are going to be reviewing a make or buy exercise, which is sometimes referred to as the outsourcing decision. So this is one of the managerial accounting types of decisions that management needs to make on a fairly regular basis. With this particular type of decision, you're choosing whether or not to continue to make a part internally or to buy it from another company. So it's another relevant cost type decision where we're taking a look at the relevant costs of both alternatives and deciding which one is most cost efficient and overall most profitable. So now we have our data set for this particular problem. Mario and Me manufactures a line of high-performance video game controllers, the chairs, that give gamers the full experience, including vibration, sounds, etc. Based on an annual volume of 10,000 units, the current cost per unit of a controller chair is as follows. We have direct materials of $9. We have direct labor of $1.40. And now we have the tricky part, the factory overhead. This includes part fixed, part variable, but the total amount is $10. Now we know that fixed costs do not behave on a per unit basis. Variable costs do, but fixed costs don't. So what they've done here is they've taken the total fixed costs, which down below you'll see that's $75,000, and they've identified a per unit rate, assuming the units stay at 10,000 units. So what we can do here and what we need to do is figure out how much of this $10 is fixed and how much is variable. $75,000 divided by 10,000 units is going to give us a fixed amount of $750, which gives us $250 for the variable overhead. So that's a very important piece of this problem because we're going to need to take a look at how those costs will change, if they will change at all. And again, the total is $2040. So now we have our fixed variable overhead, we have our direct materials and direct labor. Now notice, these costs are for the entire chair. Down below it says these direct materials, the $9 up above, include a battery-operated electric motor, which Mario and Me assembles with parts purchased from an outside vendor for $2 per motor. Now let's pay close attention to that first of all. The $9 in direct materials is for the entire chair, but they're saying that the motor itself costs $2. So the other $7 is for something else. We don't know what it is. We're not really concerned with that. It's a $7 other material, $2 motor. Now, in addition, with this motor, we're going to have, notice that we assemble that motor with parts purchased from an outside vendor. So we buy the $2 pieces and we use some labor, use some overhead to assemble the motor itself. In other words, out of this direct labor and some amount of this fixed or variable overhead, some of that cost relates to just putting the motor together, in addition to putting the entire chair together. Minimo has offered to supply the assembled battery-operated motor at a cost of $625 per unit. So they're going to assemble it, and they're going to sell it to us for $625. If we accept this offer, we're going to be able to reduce the variable labor and variable overhead costs of the entire unit by 60%. In other words, 60% of our labor and overhead related to just putting the battery-operated motor together. If we buy the motor already assembled, we don't have to worry about putting it together. That saves us a little bit of cost. Notice that it does not say anything about the fixed overhead, which makes sense. Generally speaking, you don't eliminate fixed overhead. The fixed overhead stays. So we want to know if Mario and Me should continue to make the electric motor or outsource and buy from Minimo. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at all of the relevant costs under both alternatives. We're going to look at the relevant costs to make it, the relevant costs to buy it, and the impact of each related to buying on income. In other words, if there's a cost in buying it, that's going to be a negative amount. But if there's a cost in making it and not buying it, then that's a positive amount. Eventually, we want to know the advantage of making versus buying. So what we're going to do here, I've identified 4 different costs that we need to look at. The purchase price of the entire assembled unit is a very important relevant cost. Now, that's generally only going to show up, of course, if we do buy it. So this is just the purchase price of the assembled unit. It's $6.25 per unit. Let me change the formatting here to make sure we have our cents. So $6.25 per unit, that's going to be a negative amount. That's going to be an impact of buying on income. So if we buy, we have a cost of $6.25. If we make, we don't have that cost. Now let's take a look at the next cost would be motor material cost. So that's if we continue to make it, we have to pay the $2 per motor. But if we buy it, we do not have that cost. So this actually shows up as a positive because it's $2 cheaper for that particular item if we buy the overall assembled product versus making it. We're saving the $2. Now we're also saving labor and variable overhead here. So with the labor, $140, we are reducing it by 60%. So what we want here, we don't want to put the full $1.40. We only want the portion of it that it'll change. If we buy, well, let me back up. If we make, we're going to have the entire $1.40. But we're going to have some of that even if we buy. So what we want to know is what is the, if we make it, what cost are we going to have that wouldn't have already existed? In other words, if we decide to buy it, we're saving 60%. So no matter what, we're going to have 40%. There's going to be 40% of this cost under either alternative. Therefore, we don't care about that. That's irrelevant. That 40% portion won't differ into the other alternatives, so that's an irrelevant cost, and we do not want to consider it in this decision. The only cost that's relevant is the amount that will change. If we make this product, we're losing out on saving 60% of this $1.40 labor. In other words, we're going to have 84 cents more labor than we would have if we bought it. We're not going to have the entire $1.40 more because there's going to be a portion of it under either alternative. If we make it, we're spending 84 cents more in labor. The same thing applies to the variable overhead. By the way, for buying it's 0. With the variable overhead, that's why we had to break this out into $2.50. So with $2.50, we're saying that another 60% of that would be saved if we bought. Therefore, if we make it, it's not saved. It cost us extra. So $2.50 times 60%, that's $1.50 that we were not saving because we decided to make it. So in other words, the other dollar is going to be there under either alternative, therefore we don't even want to consider it. Let me back up here to put in our that's a positive 84 cents, because if we buy it, we don't have that 84 cents, so it saves us money by buying. Down here for the reduced variable overhead, this saves us $1.50. If we buy, we won't have to worry about that $1.50 cost. So in the end, if we do a quick sum here, it is going to cost us $1.91 more to buy. It's going to cost us $6.25 to buy, whereas the only benefits we're losing by making are the $4.34. So we're spending more buying this part than we would saving from the materials, the labor, and the overhead. So in the end, the advantage is actually to buy or to make. Again, we have to turn this into so we can see the full number. So by making, we're saving $1.91, which that's another way of saying by buying, we're spending $1.91 more. So here they've decided to continue making the product that saves them a little bit of money. And again, with these indirect or these irrelevant costs, we always have to remember that we don't want to include the full variable or labor or variable overhead because we're generally only going to save a portion of it. With these types of relevant cost decisions, especially make or buy, it's going to be very common that the only cost, there's only going to be one column with just one cost, and that'll be the buy scenario because there you only have the purchase price. With the make, you're generally going to have a lot of those other costs that you're going to continue to have. So hopefully this has helped to clarify how to do a make or buy or outsourcing decision. But please feel free to ask any questions in the comment area if you do have them. Thanks for your time.